Are you okay to read the first paragraph or two or page maybe even when we get going?
Okay, yes.
Great, okay. So I'll give a very brief introduction yet again. So this is today's story, the Wind in Rome. Now we've read this page and this page last time, and today we're going straight into this one here. So it's over to Michael. I think you just said you're ready. So could you start up here maybe? I need Celestian.
I need selection. Rome's main strength has always been her navy, and now when the same fleet is twice daily suspended, shimmering somewhere between heaven and water, Rome is growing weak. Our enemies may soon learn of this, but what worries me more than anything else is the notion that those who dwell in the eternal city have already begun to forget what the wind is. And I am left with two options. Either to let them forget that it ever existed, or to do all in my power to return the wind to Rome. I decided to talk to the Celestian myself, and to this end, I spent the whole of the following day making my way through the eastern outskirts of Rome, trying to remain incognito. I will help you, my sovereign. Celestian is glad I have come. Not least as my money will soon run out, and my delightful companions, it seems, have forgotten how to blow. They didn't ever bother trying to purse their lips today. Most likely they have guessed that their client will not be able to keep his head above water much longer. On the way back, on the way back, we run into an old woman coming the other way. Almost before she has caught sight of me, she flinches and presses herself to the wall. The soldiers escorting me seize her by the arms, but I immediately ordered them to release her. In her eyes, I see madness, and I know who it is that stands before me. Who it is that stands before me.
Mhm.
Tell me, kind woman, how to get back the which is lost without trace. The old woman lifts her hand and stretches it out to touch my face. Then she gazes long into my eyes. Finally, she says, in the mountains it was born. Over the sea it was lost. Searching the place where you have not yet looked. You speak no sense, old woman. My rage surged within me. She laughs mockingly, but seemingly she is nonetheless fearful of my demeanor because cutting her laughter off abruptly, she finishes the words she had meant to say. You cannot return that which you did not possess. 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 If you find that
Mhm.
if you find that which you have not lost, you might lose everything which belongs to you, and then also that which you are yet to have.
Yes. Okay, we'll leave it there. Yes. Yes. So, any tricky words there that you really sort of stumped you and you're really not quite sure what they mean or how to pronounce them? It was a good reading, I think. Very good. Really enjoyed it.
As always, strength,
Yeah, I did notice
strength,
that one. Yeah, yeah, it
strength.
is. Yeah, it's there's only one vowel, isn't there? That does make it quite tricky. Yeah, it's just practice, I guess, really. So strength, strength.
Strength,
Yeah.
strength. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, you've got all the sounds there. Maybe the TH is a bit too strong, but when you've practiced it enough, you perhaps you'll ease back a little bit on the THs. So let me do it a couple more times for you. Strength, strength, strength. Yeah,
Strength, strength.
yeah. It's a good job there was no S on the end of it.
Mm.
Yes. That is a tricky sound, but it sounds pretty good. But you're just more practice on that one, I think, definitely. But I did notice that one though. But again, I could easily understand what you were saying, so it wasn't really an issue as such. So when it says the eternal city, what is that? What does it mean? Any idea?
I
Michael?
think it's the synonym of the Rome. It's Eternal City.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes. That's it. Yes,
yes,
it
it's
has.
Rome.
That's right. It has that name, doesn't it? The eternal city. Just as maybe it's not quite the same thing, but New York is sometimes called the Big Apple.
Yeah.
Not quite the same thing, but yeah. Any other words there? So you done strength. What else? Any other words?
The French world sovereign. Oh, it's
Oh,
not French. I think it's French.
it may have that. Yes, sovereign. You've got it really. Sovereign, sovereign. Yeah,
Sovereign.
sovereign. I think when
Uh,
you said it, I didn't really notice it as being any way out. I think it was pretty good pronunciation. So it's got sort of reign, and a king has a reign. At the end, where the R starts, that's basically the word reign there, isn't it? And a king reigns. So normally that's attributed to a king when you say sovereign. But maybe it could be stretched to an emperor as well, I suppose. You might talk about an emperor as being a sovereign too. And we don't know if it's a king or an emperor. We don't know which it is really. Yeah, but you've got it. Sovereign, sovereign. Do you want to do it a couple more times? Sovereign.
Sovereign.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Sovereign.
Yeah, I think you've got that pretty much, yes. If that was a capital S, then there's a gold coin that we produce in this country, in England, or Britain, perhaps I should say, and it's called a sovereign. Sovereign. And I think it has a picture of the emperor, the king or the queen on it. So, so in I think it's in Australia. No, in South Africa they're called cougarans, but our sort of gold coins are called the sovereigns. Anything else?
To purse their lips. It's round. It's
Hmm.
like blow through the round
Yeah,
hole.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, if you purse your lips, you're sort of you're pulling them to, squeezing them together. That's right, making them sort of smaller. That's it. Yeah. I think when I sometimes say purse your lips when people are making the W sound. When you make the w,
Wha-
you purse your lips. You bring your lips together, make them sort of slightly smaller. And that's the word. So it's if there was a C there, it'd be the word curse. So purse and curse, they rhyme. Basically the same sounds, but you've got that one. That's it. Purse and curse. That's a good. Yeah, I thought that was fantastic when you said that. No trouble there. I did. I think in here somewhere there was the word wind. I can't think where it was now. Perhaps it's on the next page or
The
something.
wind. Return the wind to Rome. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think you were between. It sounded like you were saying somewhere between wind and wind. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you've got it. Yeah, wind, wind. So, so with the word wind, we don't know if it's wind, as in winding a handle or something, or wind. You only know from the context which meaning it is, and you have to sort of pronounce it which way is appropriate. Anything else?
I, I don't know what does this word mean. She
Oh,
flinches.
flinched. Yes. So she flinches. So this came up. I can't think when this came up now. So if you burn your hand, if you touch something that's hot, Oh, you flinch backwards quickly because it's hot.
Ah,
Your immediate reaction is to withdraw your hand quickly. That's a flinch, you might say. But and that's your hand might flinch. But here, it's her whole body, I guess, because she's just seen the emperor or the king, and so she thinks, "Oh, I could die here, or I could get beaten or put in prison, I suppose, or something." That's it. Anything else?
ah.
How about this
If
one?
I
Hmm.
uh, the man, the manner, the manner,
Yeah, when you read it out, I didn't notice it being particularly out or anything. So we say this is demeanor. Demeanor.
demeanor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, spot on. Yes, demeanor. Um, and it means it's sort of talking about your appearance, how you look. If someone looks at you, what would they immediately think? Oh, here's an interesting man, or here's a boring man, or here's a guard, something like that, or a soldier, perhaps, or something like that. So. Are you a happy man? Are you a sad? Probably more like you're a happy man or a sad man. Because here it says, fearful of my demeanor. So, in other words, he is standing like the emperor or the king, as I keep saying, and she's obviously fearful of his position. So, if you think about it, a king could stand in a weak way. He could have the appearance of being weak just looking at him, or he could stand in a very powerful way, his chest sticking out, his head up, that sort of a thing. There's lots of little details there. Okay, that was it. That's fantastic.
Uh,
Um,
it's interesting why she, if I understand correctly, why she touched
hmm,
the king's face.
yeah, yeah.
They'll lift her hands and stretch it out to touch my face. It's like blind man, a blind woman, try to recognize
Hmm.
who is in front of your, touch face.
Yeah, that's quite risky, isn't it, really? If you touch the king or the emperor's face, it's sort of it's demeaning to him. Not quite demeanor, but demean. In other words, if you demean someone, you're lowering them somehow. If you demean somebody. So yeah, I think touching the king or the emperor does demean them slightly, especially if
Yeah,
it's a
it's humiliating behavior
yes, yeah,
against
yes.
not only emperor. It's humiliated behavior against everybody if someone touch your face.
But it's
Looking
also
brutal.
intimate as well. It's intimate. It shows that you are open to your people, you could say. That's the other way of looking at it. But also, he does say nice things. Tell me, kind woman, kind. So I suppose if you call somebody kind, it's a nice thing to be said about you, isn't it? So yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, interesting. But it's a little bit like I don't know if you've ever heard of this. In Henry VIII was a king of King of England, I suppose, from about 500 years ago. And he had, as was pretty common at that time, he had a court jester. He had a court jester. Do you know what a jester is, you guys? Ever heard of a jester? So nowadays, if I say you jest, I might miss off the ER in other words. If I say you jest, I'm saying you are joking. So really, a jester was something like the Joker
Uh,
in the
some clown.
professional comedian almost in the king's and his
Yeah.
representation. Here we go here. So the jester was able to say pretty much anything. I don't know if this was the same for every king there's ever been, but certainly say Henry VIII, I believe his court jester was in a sense a good friend of him because the jester could say anything. Whereas if you were a courtier, if you were a lord and you had to you wouldn't say things that the jester could say. The jester could say anything and get away with it, pretty much. Whereas a lord would be trying to protect his land or protect his people or protect his position in some way. So you couldn't really trust maybe quite so much what the lords might say. They always had a reason for what they were saying. But the jester, well, he was like the idiot. He was the fool, could say anything. And supposedly he did say important things. I understand. I think I'm right in saying that. Here we go. I'm trying to find where we came from. Here we are.
And now, uh, can we
Oh,
came across on this word in modern language just when you try to describe, when you try to humiliate or try to describe some silly person or
yeah, you might say you might call someone a jester, but it doesn't isn't used that much, the word jester. But everyone would know if I said, "Oh, you jest." If I say something like that, I'm basically saying, "Oh, you joke. You're joking." If I said you jest. So I've missed out the ER in saying jest. But yeah, everyone in Britain would have known that word, I would have thought, but not a great use. Not in great use, though. It's sort of rarely used. So, but the point was, he could do anything, and presumably he could touch the king as well, I would have thought. And maybe it's the same situation here, that this lady is being granted sort of like that sort of status. I think that's how I would explain this. But this is going rather deeply into the story, and I'm making a guess here because he's asking her to come out with some very deep ideas, and I think she does, doesn't she? So she says this strange thing here. You, or he ends up asking, "You speak no sense." So in other words, she says something quite complicated which can't be understood quickly or easily. So she said, "In the mountains it was born, over the sea it was lost. Search in the place where you have not yet looked." So that's a bit of something like a riddle. Ever heard of a riddle?
a riddle puzzle.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so a riddle is a puzzle. Puzzle. Yeah, that's it. That's another way of looking at the word riddle. That's it. Yeah, a puzzle. But when you say riddle, it's just in words normally. It's just a series of words where there's some sort of hidden meaning or some sort of solution has to be discovered in the words. So it's almost like a riddle. But back in these days, I think it was quite common. Um, they had people who sort of communed on the spirit realm, and they would they would be sort of between heaven and earth in a way, and they would say words you could ultimately almost imagine. They were saying the words they could hear from heaven and speak it to men, but it was very hard for men to understand. Does that make sense? They were sort of like, in a sense, some people were between heaven and earth, and they could sort of help to communicate between the two.
Mhm.
So, and I think maybe she's sort of playing this sort of a role, and he's and, and there was this idea, if you were mad, that that's a sign that that God is communicating with you. I say God, I mean the gods maybe, or the powerful spirits are communicating with you, and that's sort of why you're mad, in a sense. That's what genuinely was believed, even up until a few hundred years ago. I think people took that to be the case. I think to some degree. So it's quite well sort of researched, I suppose, this story to come up with these sort of ideas. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about this? Um, how about these words here? What does that mean, Michael?
Trying to remain incognito. Incognito, it's a synonym of the word well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Word anonymous, unknown, anonymous.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Anonymous.
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 Yes.
That's it. Anonymous. You've
So
got it. Yeah.
in the beginning of the story, the emperor or king tried to uh, meet the selection.
Yes,
Yes,
that's right.
and
Yes,
he went to the journey, to the trip, to the road
that's right.
incognito,
Yes.
and tried to keep this incognito.
Okay, so let me correct you a little bit. So you're spot on. Anonymity, anonymous are the same idea, aren't they? That was on the previous page. So and we say incognito. In English, it comes out as incognito. Another Latin word, incognito. Do you want to say it in the English for me? Incognito.
Uh, stress incognito.
That's it. Yes, incognito.
Yes,
That's what you say. Yes,
stress on I incognito.
that's it. That's it. Um,
Incognito.
I can't think of anything else really. Yeah, I think when you were over here, so just over here, read this little bit here. When you said my rage, it wasn't quite clear here. So let me read this a little bit for you once again. So she spoke no, you speak no sense, old woman. So this is him talking to the old lady, isn't it? Then he says, my rage surges within me. Do you just say that little bit, the whole thing again there for me once more, Michael?
Read again.
Yeah, could you just read it
Yeah,
once more? Yes, thanks.
yeah. You you speak no sense, old woman. Old woman. My rage surges within me.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. I like how you corrected yourself on woman because there was a little bit of a V at the
Wo-
beginning. That's spot
wo-
on. Yeah. You've got it. That's it. And so let me do those three words again. So, woman, my rage. So, rage. It's got this
Rage.
rage. Yeah, yes.
Rage.
Yeah, that's spot
Woman.
on.
Woman.
Yeah.
My rage surges within me.
Yes. Okay, that was very good. Any question from anyone else or anything else to raise? Anyone? This little bit here. So, if you're abrupt, you suddenly do something or
Stop.
stop doing something.
Stop.
So
Stop.
this, that's it, sudden. Um, so what sees anybody? Anyone sees?
It's stop. Sure.
Kidnap.
Ceasefire. I don't.
Kidnapped.
Ceasefire. Stop the.
S- Carlo, you were saying something?
Sorry, kidnapping. Kidnapping. Seize.
Oh yes,
To
yes.
give
That's
to
yeah.
get away to
Mm.
yeah. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe something like that. Uh
yeah, yeah. That's
I
it, pretty much.
I used
But it's slightly
to
different though. But
find
carry on, carry on.
yeah. No, sorry.
You.
I was
Mm,
wondering
hmm
that I used to find this kind of word um when I read the article on the newspaper. It's very
yeah,
common. Seize. They were seized by the pirates
that's
in the
it.
sea,
Yes,
for example, no?
yes, yes.
Or USA seized something,
Seized
uh,
gold or something.
yeah,
Seized
seized
money
gold from another nation, things like that. Huh?
or oil.
Oil,
That's exactly it. Yes.
yeah.
So this line here in particular says, so the soldiers escorted me, seized her by the arm. So when we say seized her by the arm, they grabbed her by the arm. They outstretched their arm and they grabbed her arm by presumably using their hand, I guess. And just one word here I noticed, Michael, also here. So there's these three words here, perhaps. So the word delightful didn't sound quite right, I think, when you said it. So my delightful companions. Do you want to say that just a little bit again there? So my delightful companions.
My delightful
Oh
companions.
yes, spot on.
Companions or companions?
Companion. Companion.
Companion.
Yeah,
Companions. My delightful companions.
that's it. Yeah, you've got it. Spot on. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I have a question. Okay,
Yeah.
I said wrong word, cease and seize. What the difference? Cease fire, like stop the fire, cease negotiation, and
So
seize. What the difference in pronunciation
very
of
slight, I would say. So cease and seize. So this one is seize, and if you
seize?
yes, yeah, and cease starts with a so cease fire starts with a C at the front. So cease fire, and seize her, seize her, seize her. See, that's it. Yes, there's a bit zedy in the middle, isn't it? Seize. Yes. So
Okay,
cease fire, cease, and seize her. So they're very similar. Very hard to work out the difference, I suppose, but the context will give it away. But the other word with seize might also be, and it's the same meaning, I guess, exactly the same meaning, but you might talk about on your car, you're driving down the road and something seizes on the car. So in other words, something's gone wrong with the car. It could, if something does seize on your car, it might be the brakes might seize. So it just means they've suddenly gone rock solid. They suddenly won't move. They've set hard in one particular position. Sometimes an engine might seize on a car, which is incredibly serious. It means that the engine is locked solid in a particular sort of position and won't move. I've had my brake seize on my car, so seize. Okay, so I've turned over the page. Hopefully everyone's had their read there. Answered any questions, I should say. So Carlo, are you okay to carry on from here? Maybe if I go back over
Yeah.
the page, um, because we're sort of halfway through. Well, sort of halfway through this. So maybe just read this little bit here again now. So this is
Hmm.
what the old lady is saying, I think. So should we read this bit here, then I'll turn over the page.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
you cannot return that which you did not possess. Sorry. If
That's it.
you find that which you have not lost, you might lose everything which belongs to you, and then also that which you are yet to have. For several days, both as I fall asleep and awaken, the old woman's words are on my lips, but even so I cannot decipher their meaning, and then I forget about them, for at last Celestion appears and I must speak to him with the senators convened, whom he will soon persuade that a new military campaign, this time land basis, is vital. As before, there is no wind. Rome is languishing in the head. When it rains, I close my eyes, for I cannot bear to see the drops fall perfect vertical lines. The rain brings almost no relief, but that almost is the sole thing which keeps my legions from mutiny. If I do not send Celestion on a campaign to the east, they will bring him or someone else to power. The ruler of such a huge empire as that of Rome must constantly maintain the infinite difference between himself and his subjects. That is, in fact, the main infinite difference between the ruler and the many citizens of Rome who are just waiting for the moment when I become, even if only slightly, the same as them, the same as everyone. The endless military campaigns, the necessity for constantly expanding the empire's borders, my simultaneous presence in several places at once, which is quite inexplicable to the masses. It is, of course, in fact, due to the skillful spread of rumors to that effect. All of these are the inevitable attributes of power, no less than my palaces, my legions, and my concubines.
Okay, you're holding it there. Yes. Okay.
Do you want me to go
No,
to
no,
carry
that's
on?
okay.
Okay.
That's great. That's great. So the very last word, in English we say this as concubines.
Ah, concubines. Okay.
Yeah, so concubines.
Hmm.
What is a concubine? You say.
Concubines is a woman
Hmm.
that makes company to a ruler, to a king, and they have many in at once.
Yes.
For example, it's not his wife, a king's wife.
Yes, that's it.
It's
Yes,
not
yes.
yes. It's a woman that in the past, or maybe as well nowadays,
I
for
suppose
example,
so.
in
Yeah.
East,
Mm.
uh, in the Middle East, they
Hmm.
have just to show their power in terms of sexuality, or I don't know, anything
Yeah, I
else.
think you've given a
Yeah,
very good
yeah.
explanation. That's very, very good. I
Uh-huh.
think you couldn't explain say much more. Um, my little bit to add would be so it's something a little bit like a wife, but they don't have the same status as a wife.
Mm.
They're sort of a lower down in status.
Hmm.
That's it. Yeah, that's spot on. Very good.
They used to be slaves,
Yeah,
maybe. I
it's
don't
not.
know.
Yeah, so that it's not undefined exactly where they are. At one
Mm.
point, say in certain situations, yes, they're all pretty close to being slaves. But I think if they really are a slave, then they're a sexual slave. They're a sex slave, not really a
Hmm.
concubine, I suppose. But but most of the time, I think it's something like a wife, but they don't have the same status. So
Mm.
less power, less influence, and the
Mm.
wife has those powers presumably. Normally, if you have concubines, it means you do have a wife. Normally, but you don't normally just have concubines. Although I guess it isn't impossible to be just have concubines, I suppose. I don't know. A great reading again, very good. Um,
Thanks.
so any words that you want to go back over again? I mean, there's lots of Latin words that I'm sure you don't need to, in one sense. Anything you want to go back over with to double
Yes,
check?
I'm just finding out. Maybe
Mm.
there's some word that which I don't know the meaning.
Mm.
Uh, Give me a second. Sorry, Tony. Skillful, maybe. Skillful spread.
Mm.
The sentence in brackets.
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked how you read that out actually. But you just put a slightly different voice on there, and it felt it felt just as it should be said. So if someone, so skill, it comes from skill. With skill would be two L's, but put the full on the end
Mm.
of it, you lose one of the L's. So that's
Oh,
it,
okay.
skillful. Yeah, so it comes from skill
Thanks.
basically.
Oh.
Special ability to do something or other,
Mm,
basically.
okay. So,
Yeah, that's right. So a state. So the
mm,
state of having that skill.
I
Skill.
was cheat. I was sorry. No, was the past tense of cheating? Cheat.
Cheated, I would say
Cheated. I was
cheated.
cheated by the fact that there
Uh,
was
uh,
just one L, and so I
it
was
felt like a
thinking
different
it was a
word.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was. I like that. I was cheated. That word
Cheat.
cheated
Yeah.
me.
Sorry.
I
Well,
like
how,
that.
how do you say?
I'd have said tricked. I'd have said most people
Ah,
have said tricked, I
trick.
think. But I like
Tricked.
that. It was
Okay.
very good. It's very
Okay.
poetic. I like that. It sounded very poetic. So no, it wasn't a bad thing to say. I just thought it was poetic.
Mm.
So Matt, how about this word here?
Yeah. Decipher the code, maybe the coding.
Yeah,
Decipher.
that's it. Yes,
Ah,
yeah. So
it's the same in
so
Italia.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
But so what is the code we're talking about? What is the code? Do you remember? Did you take that part of the story in?
Yeah. So let me
Do you
think
remember?
a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
So the old woman's
Yes.
words,
That's it.
decipher. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
the subject.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's it. You've got it.
Hmm.
So he's trying to decipher what the old woman said to him.
Mhm.
It just wasn't because first of all he said, "The words you say
Good.
make no sense." That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
In his
So it's
rage, he
the
said,
rage
"That's
within.
that's
Yeah.
it. You've got it.
Mm.
Yes." That's it. So that's and so we with this word here we say it as dis, whoops, decipher.
Ah, the cipher. Okay, not the
That's it.
cipher. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I cannot decipher their meaning. That's it. You got it. Um, and maybe this word here, I think. So what is that? What are those things with
Yes,
plural names?
the senator convened. Convened is to agree each other.
It could be,
It
yes.
could be.
Um,
In
mm,
Italian, is convenire is to agree with someone.
that's interesting. That's
Yes,
fascinating. Yeah.
maybe I'm trying
Yeah.
to guess, no, the meaning.
But it's a good guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of right next to the meaning. So when we say convened, there's much more of the meaning of get coming together with somebody
Ah,
to
okay.
have a discussion about what you're going to decide upon. So, and if you convene, a, so a convention is people
Hmm.
coming together for a meeting.
Yeah.
Convention. So convene, people coming together again.
Hmm.
So, and senators, what is senate? We say senators in English. So, what are the
Hmm.
senators? The
Is
senators,
a
what are they?
politic, maybe the most powerful in Rome, in ancient Rome.
Yeah, that's it.
We
Yeah,
have
yeah,
senators today
yeah.
as well, no?
Even
In
today,
every
yeah,
parliament.
yeah, pretty
They are
much, yeah.
the older one,
Mm.
maybe.
You tend to think of as being a bit
Uh,
older. That's true. Yes.
mm-hmm.
So in America, they have representatives and they have
Mm.
senators, don't they?
It
So
is supposed to be, they are supposed to be the sage one, the most,
yeah, yeah.
how can I say, the most wise, sorry.
At least you
And
hope they are.
they are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in Britain, we have our senators would be our lords. We have lords.
Ah,
So we have
okay.
the
Ah.
Houses of Parliament, and they're split
Mm-hmm.
into two. The wise ones, as you're saying, they're the lords, and they
Mm.
don't have much power. They sort of have an influence, but not really much power.
Mm.
But the people who have all the power are those who are in the Commons, the House of Commons, and that's
The House of
including the Prime
Commons,
Minister.
yeah.
That's it. And they're MPs in the Houses in the Commons, I should say. MP standing for
Mm.
Members of Parliament.
And sorry, Tony, I have a question
Mm.
about Prince Andrew,
Oh yes,
the one that is among these harassment scandals, no? That is
yes, going through all
involved
this
in
trouble.
Epstein file.
Mm.
He was one of the lords in the parliament.
No, he wouldn't
No,
have
ah,
any
okay.
power in that sense. No, he's very much sort of a figurehead in a way, really. But he is,
Mm.
I think he's still the second in line for the throne.
But is
So
the king's brother?
exactly, yes. So
Ah,
if the
okay.
king died or was incapacitated in some way,
Mm.
supposedly it would be even now, it would still be Andrew, I think. Although I
It,
haven't said that, I'm sure there would be some immediate sort of interjection and they
mm.
would stop it if it were to happen. But
It doesn't take after King's Charles. It does look similar to
or to
him.
look at, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes, I can see a definite family resemblance, definitely, yes.
yeah.
Mm.
They're different.
Absolutely, yes.
Mm.
But in personality, I think they're completely different. In personality,
Yeah.
they're absolutely
Mm.
different. Right. Okay. Anything else you want to ask about this?
No, I'm okay.
Maybe it's interesting that so in ancient Rome they had senators,
Hmm.
and the other word from ancient Rome is of course, and we say this in English as we say legions.
Legions.
That's
And
spot on.
and I said legions, maybe. I don't know. Legions.
Yeah,
Mm.
it sounded more like that. Yes,
Mm.
yeah. So the legions are the famous armies of
Mm.
America, of Rome, I should say.
Mm.
And we tend to think of legionnaires, the people who led a legion.
Yeah, the angel legions.
Yes.
Mm,
Uh,
okay.
so there's this word here. So how would you say that word?
Inexplicable.
Oh, spot on. Yes, inexplicable. That's it. Yes. But what does it mean? Any idea?
That you cannot explain.
Ah, yes, that's it. Yes, something that cannot be explained. That's it.
Mm,
Yes, it's sort of similar to unexplainable. See, the
mm,
Americans tend to say unexplainable.
mm.
It's slightly different meaning, I think, really. And inexplicable just sounds slightly better to me. That's it. Yeah, than unexplainable. That's it. Inexplicable. Spot on. Uh,
Thanks. Simultaneous.
yeah, spot on again. Simultaneous. Spot on. There was the word. There was another word, and I think it was the.
Sorry.
Are you
Yeah,
okay? You haven't got flu,
I'm a
have
little
you?
bit, yeah,
Oh
I'm a little
dear.
bit cold
Oh dear.
because of
It's
my
it's the
students.
evening. Oh.
They all sick.
No, no. They have
Yeah.
it, you get it. Yeah. There
Mm.
was the word eyes in here. I can't see it now. It was over here somewhere. I can't see it. But you sort of put an H sound in
Yes, I
front of it.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's that. Yeah, I
I,
remember that.
I noted. I noted.
It was just before Legions, but I can't see it on the screen. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, and over here there was a word. There was this word here, these, and when you say it, it sounded very much like this.
Yeah.
So if I just say this
The,
sentence here for you, including the
okay.
concubines. So all of these are the inevitable attributes of power, no less than my palaces, my legions, and my concubines. Do you mind just saying that again? So the
Yeah.
word I'm really thinking about is these. These.
Okay.
Okay.
So, sorry. All of these are the inevitable attributes of power, no less than my palaces, my legions, and my concubines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yes.
I could be, it could be better, but
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
I'm going
So
to
it's
follow that.
quite tricky when you have a list, when you're reading away and you have a list. So I say a list because it's a comma, a few
Yeah.
words, comma, a couple of words, a comma, then a few more words. So that's sort of a list. And it's always quite tricky because you don't know where the emphasis goes in the list. So you're looking out all the time for little signs how to say it. Um, But I would have thought all of these are quite sort of boring. But when you come to the word concubines, because that it contains the idea of sex maybe in it, that might be the one to give a little bit of an unusual or a little bit more
Mm,
emphasis to. But and especially as you can then see it down here as starting the next paragraph with a whole series of dots. So if you were reading and you saw my concubines and you can see the next one started with concubines with a bunch of dots, you might give a different emphasis to
mm,
concubines in reading it there, especially because it's
yeah.
presumably to do with sex, isn't it, really? Which is a sort of a universal
All right. Yeah.
power, isn't it, really?
I
Is.
see.
Yeah, but it's tricky, it's very tricky. It's very tricky. And in fact, there's a whole Um, looking at it very quickly from there down to there, I think again that looks like one sentence. So a sentence ends with a full stop. So
Mm,
supposedly that's all one breath, you could say, to read that out, but that's not really possible, is it? So the writer of this hardly uses any full stops, I think. So it is just tricky, very tricky. And especially as you have like some brackets in there. So it's a tricky read, I would suggest.
yeah.
So let me have a go reading that bit there.
I'm all ears. Ears. Sorry. I'm all ears. I put
So
an H.
ears and eyes, ears and eyes.
Ears
That's
and
it.
eyes. Yes.
Yeah, you've got it, I think. So it doesn't mean I'm being any good, but here we go. So
Okay.
so the endless military campaigns and this is where the list starts. We start a bit of a list, don't we? So let me start again then. So the endless military campaigns, the necessity for constantly expanding the empire's borders, my simultaneous presence in several different places at once, which quite inexplicably to the masses, it is of course, in fact, due to the skillful spread of rumors to that effect. All of these are the inevitable attributes of power, no less than my palaces, my legions, and my concubines. So I give a slight emphasis to concubines. But so it is tricky. So I would say that was a reasonable reading of that there. So I suppose what I'm doing is I'm looking ahead to the next comma and thinking, well, that's sort of part of a list. And I've got to not quickly, but with a reasonable amount of speed, go into the next phrase, always also containing commas, but somehow they are connected. So I don't want to split them up too much. So I have to roll into the next one. Does that make sense in a way? So I'm sort of rolling into it. If it's a full stop, I would come to a abrupt end, almost, and I'd put a different voice on
Okay.
almost.
Would you mind to come again? Sorry, Tony. Yeah, because
It's
I was coughing and
oh, okay,
I
all
missed
right,
your last part, your last part of the explanation. Sorry.
okay. Well, this is sort of the top of my head, so I haven't really thought this through, but um, so if it is quite tricky to read this because it's all commas and it's one full sentence with a full stop at the end, and there's some brackets in the middle. And so one thing I'm trying to do is I'm sort of reading it. I'm not reading it as little sentences, although I am stopping at the commas. I'm trying to sort of trying to continue or connect each sort of phrase with the next one. And that's supposedly really what a comma is about, isn't it? With a full stop, you're sort of ending an idea and then coming to the next one. With a comma, you can say these ideas are sort of connected in some way, or more connected than if they'd been a full stops. So I'm trying to roll into the next one. So I think you did okay when you read it out, but it's quite tricky. I'm not sure what you missed really. Do you want to ask any little questions about that? I'm not really sure I've given a very good explanation or anything,
Oh,
but
I got it. I got it.
do you fancy reading it again
Yeah.
once again? That bit there. Okay, you'll go.
So, the endless military campaigns, the necessity for constantly expanding the empire's borders, my simultaneous presence in several places at once, which is quite inexplicable to the masses. It is, of course, in fact due to the skillful spread of rumors to that effect. All of these are the inevitable attributes of power, no less than my palaces, my legions, and my concubines.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I liked how you gave quite a lot of emphasis to all. That was spot on. That was really good. I really got a feel of the meaning then when doing that. Yes,
Mhm.
but it is tricky. So, any questions from anybody else about this little bit here, this page,
I
Michael or
haven't.
Ruslan? Sorry, Michael.
I haven't. I haven't.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you very much, Carlo. I can't think of
You're
anything else to
welcome.
add
You're
there.
very welcome.
Yeah, that was good. Very good. Okay, so it's over to Ruslan. I've got your name wrong again. Sorry. So, do you fancy reading this little bit here? And we'll go over the page another line or two, however it ends, to end the sentence. Is that okay,
Sorry,
Russ?
sorry.
Is it okay to read this bit here to
Okay,
start with? And we'll go over the page to see what's on the next page.
okay. My concubines, my head used to be turned more by the impe impetuous gallops of mare with her manner tossing in the wind. by an untamed herd of horses down at the shoreline, challenging the waves and scattering the foam with their hooves. I can watch that forever. At least I could until the wind vanished. Maybe this is why I have always preferred to campaign against naval powers, despite the seas which has plagued my since my very childhood. Or maybe I sensed from very childhood that misfortune would come from a distant mountainous land where I have never been for the same reason, for fear of losing sight of the sea. Sometimes I find it funny that no one has guessed this weakness of mine.
Right. I'll stop you there. I'll stop you there.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so you've read this sort of paragraph which goes over the page. So any words here you want to check about the meaning, perhaps? Not sure the meaning of any words here.
Yeah, there are a couple. Let
Hmm.
me. Okay, let's start from first sentences. It is
Yeah.
plugged,
Yeah, so that's plagued. Plagued.
like.
Plagued. So the plague is a disease or an illness. And if you're plagued by something, it's sort of, it's not necessarily you have the plague, but when you say you're plagued by something, it means you're just constantly worried by something. So you might be plagued by bills. Oh, I've got these terrible bills that I keep having to pay. I'm plagued by bills. I can't pay my bills. You might be plagued by worries of something else. Okay, so that's how you might use the word. Okay, any other words there?
Okay, then this this may be same reason. How about guest? No one has guests.
Oh, so that's
Uh,
guest.
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 Ah, yeah. I mean,
So
yeah,
that's
about
it.
pronunciation. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
that's it.
what this mean. Yeah, but
Mm, guest.
guest. Yeah, I
That's it. Guest.
guessed.
No one has guessed. That's it. No
Yeah,
one has
this
guessed.
means like no one have idea. Yeah, or something.
Yeah, basically the same thing. Yeah, no one has an idea. Yeah, yeah. It's basically the same meaning. That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Weakness.
How
Yeah.
about that word? That word there.
This is mountainous. Mountains.
Yeah, that's it. That's very good actually. Yes, mountainous. That's it.
Mountains.
Mountainous. That's it.
Mountains. But it is plural, I see, yeah?
It's not really a plural. So if it was plural, it'd be mountains with an S on the end, mountains. So there's two mountains, so there's two. So it's more than one, mountains. But if it's mountainous, it's sort of like a plural, but it's more like a continuous plural in the sense that, oh, this whole area is mountainous. So there's lots of mountains. There's mountains everywhere, you
Ah,
might say. So let's quick look. Let me bring up the dictionary here because it might give a better. So it
okay.
says of a region having many mountains, very large, huge, struggling under mountainous debts. You might say you're struggling under mountainous debts. That's another way of saying it. Yeah, so it's of a region. You might say this is a mountainous region. That's it. That- yeah, that was good. Anything else there on that little bit there? I'll flick
Mm,
back to the other page, I think. What did I say or anything? That was it, really. Yes, I think we get back to
yeah,
the.
okay. Let's get back.
Let's go back here. So we said what concubines were. So any words there that?
Yes, there are lots, and
Oh, yeah.
I really didn't understand any meaning of this short.
Oh, well, we'll read it again in a minute then. So, but reread
Okay,
it, or I'll read it, and then maybe you can do. So, but any of the words in particular?
okay, concubines. I understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
after your explanation, and next one, what I want to know it is impetuous
It
gallop.
That's it. So, impetuous. So if something or someone's impetuous, it means they don't really think about what they're doing. They just get on and do it. Sometimes children tend to be impetuous. They just do stuff and they don't really think about the consequences. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
If you let me bring the dictionary up. It's always slightly
mm,
better. So impetuous. Adjective. Acting or done. So acting or done quickly without thought or care. And there's an example sentence. It says, "She might live to rue this impetuous decision." So you may make an impetuous decision and then regret it. So you did it without thinking too much.
okay.
But sometimes you have to make a quick decision sometimes. But that wouldn't necessarily be impetuous. It's without thought at all if you're impetuous. But yeah. And gallop. Maybe I should go. So horses gallop. So when a horse is running at sort of pretty much top speed, it's galloping.
Gallop.
Gallops. Yeah. And sometimes you may say, "Oh, let's go down to the gallops." And that would be a place where horses generally
Um,
sort of run around and play, maybe, and they practice running fast. But gallop is fast on a horse. So there's other things. You might trot on a horse that's going slowly, sort of walking, sort of just above walking, I think. And there's a few others, but I'm not really sure. I'm not a great user of horses. And mare is a female horse, is a female horse. So
ah,
a male
female.
horse is called a horse, I think. I don't know what a stud, or I don't know what a male horse is called, but it's, yeah. And anyone know what mane is with a horse? Anyone know what a mane is with a horse?
Probably it is the opposite of mare. No, it is boy. Should be.
No,
Um, it, it could be, but does
it's
anyone
hair.
know?
It's
Hair,
hair of
that's it.
the.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, hair.
It's
So
like a lion have a mane.
that's right. Yes, exactly. So this is the hair. So on a horse they have along the back of their neck a whole
Yeah.
series of, well, that's where their hair is, I should say. A lot of their hair
Mm.
is, and they have hair on their hair. Their tail is hair as well, but it's the hair on the back of their neck. And if you toss your hair around, you're flipping it perhaps from one side to the other, or just moving it around. Sometimes if you've got long hair, it does feel nice just to move your hair around, doesn't it? But here it's
Oh,
the wind that's doing it, the wind.
okay.
And the other,
Tossing it is means up and down. Yeah, it is of
it,
the wind. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
no, no, it does sound like up and down. But so in most things, if you're tossing a coin, you're tossing a coin up in the air, it spins a little bit and it comes down. Yeah, so that's tossing a coin. But tossing hair, it can't go up and down so much, can it? It has to go from side to side. But you're right, really. Tossing does sound mainly up and down, but it's jiggling it around in this case. It's moving it from side to around, I guess you could say. Yeah. So that
Okay. Okay.
uh,
Toss.
and maybe untame up the next one. So if something is tame, most cats in houses are tame. In other words, they're sort of under control. They're not biting and scratching. They're not sort of trying to get out. They feel happy to be in someone's house. So most cows are tame. If you go to a farmer's field, all the animals in a farmer's field normally are tame unless they're a wild animal. And so the opposite of tame is wild. So it's if
Ah,
it's wild, it's dangerous in effect to some degree. But here it's saying
okay.
it's untamed, so it's sort of basic. You could say
Oh,
wild in a sense, but if you said wild, it sort of sounds like they're a bit mad and running around crazy. You might so untamed sounds better, I think, in this context.
yeah, for example, if I say tamed, there is exist like this word,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. You might say that you tamed this pig to make it friendly because it was quite, quite
Yeah,
unfriendly.
okay, and usually probably people tame their pets, yeah,
Yeah,
dogs,
yeah.
usually dogs.
I don't think in a sense, we are taming them, but I think, say, with cats or little kittens, as long as a kitten is exposed to humans while they're still quite young, I think the first few weeks, they just grow up tamed. It's not as it's a bit like children. We're not taming the children. It's just because they're exposed to adults and they sort of they go in the way of life where we direct them. So if you're exposed at a very young age, then you're not really taming them as such, but you're unintentionally taming them. But normally, if you tame something, it's quite a procedure, isn't it? Really.
Hmm, hmm.
So it's quite difficult. It may even be impossible. Some people would say. So, but not entirely impossible. So, what's a herd? What's a herd of horses, Ruslan?
Uh,
What does that mean?
part of horses.
A part, yeah, kind of. But it's a group of horses. It's the collective noun you might say of horses. You could not a collective noun, but it's
Ah,
basically talking about so you might a herd of cattle would be a group of cows. So here
okay,
it's a group
okay.
of horses basically, a herd. A herd is a group.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, the shoreline is the where the sea meets the land. Um, So this is when it says foam here, it's implying that there's I have a sneeze coming on. Oh, I just sneezed offline there. So okay, so when it says the foam, I immediately assume this is sort of bubbles, which is happens to be forming at the edge where the water meets the land. It's just slightly bubbly there. Sometimes that happens, doesn't it? So what are hooves? Foam with their hooves. You said that word quite well, I think, hooves. What are hooves then, Ruslan?
Horse. I have not idea.
Oh, okay. So this is the plural. This is basically their feet. A horse's feet. You could say
Ah,
are hooves. That's it. But it's the
yeah.
same. It's the same idea. Say if it was cows, you would say horse's hooves. Technically, a hoof is different from a foot. It's sort of like how many toes there are on the ground, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think.
Okay.
I think basically is it. There probably is a technical definition, but I'm not quite sure what it is. I think is it the toenails or basically. I don't know what the true answer is, but it's basically a cow and other sort of animals' feet. You can say there. Naval pass. Yeah, is that everything you think? Is that everything?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we covered.
Okay. Okay, so let me ask you a question then. So, what is a mare? What is a
Uh,
mare?
it is a, it is a horse. Yeah, but it
Yeah,
is a male,
that's
female
it.
horse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, that's it. You've got it. That's it. That's it. And how would you explain impetuous?
Impetuous. It is. It is
Tricky.
impetuous. It is means that very quickly,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. That really fits in better, I think, with this sentence here. Yes. Normally, impetuous is doing something without thinking about it. You rush something very quickly.
yeah,
But
yeah.
being sort of semi-wild animals, are they studying what they're doing? We don't really think so. But yeah, so it's slightly poetic to describe horses as impetuous. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's exactly descriptive in a sense, but it's sort of slightly poetic, isn't it? Well, I would suggest it is anyway. Okay, so I'll read it to you again, this bit, and then just over the page, and then you can read it once more. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
I'll read this bit and just over the page. Okay, so we said about concubines, and there's three dots. So I'll try and do it in the way that I think is appropriate for the story then. So this is the emperor, of course, saying this. So he says, "My concubines, my head used to be turned more by the impetuous gallop of a mare with her mane tossing in the wind, by an untamed herd of horses down at the shoreline, challenging the waves and scattering the foam with their hooves. I can watch that forever. At least I could until the wind vanished. Maybe that is why I have always preferred to campaign against naval powers, despite the seasickness which has plagued me since my very childhood. Or maybe I sensed from my very childhood that misfortune would come from a distant mountainous land where I have yet never been, for the same reason, for fear of losing sight of the sea. Sometimes I find it funny that no one has guessed this weakness of mine." Interesting. So do you get a feel of it now, a bit more, the meaning?
yeah, yeah, a bit, yeah.
So it's sort of at the beginning. He's in his head. He's talking to us off the top of his head, not off the top of his head, but it's sort of emotional, and it's something he enjoyed doing. He seemed like watching the horses at the shoreline running around, slightly wild. Seemed to enjoy that. But
Yeah,
but he talks about women at first, and so it's interesting that it says, okay, women, let's say women. My head used to be turned more by the impetuous gallop of horses, he's saying, isn't it? So what does it mean when it said, my head used to be turned? What does that mean?
yeah, I
Yeah.
understand it's like uh, he
Yeah.
has to be more pay attention to this activity of horses, yeah, but
Mm,
not for the woman, yeah, because it looks for me like
mm,
he started the sentences from my concubines, and he wants to emphasize it, yeah, and then he
mm.
he tell us that he he wish he had more attention to the some activities, yeah, and this means in general that he spent a lot of time with a woman, I think. Or I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
I think so. Yeah, so it's interesting what you were saying there. It's very interesting. As emperor or king, he has to project being king or emperor as being some sort of a leader, doesn't he? And I guess all the people of Rome know he's meant to have concubines. He has to have them almost, I suppose.
Mm,
And if he's not, and if he doesn't have lots of concubines, I guess maybe he's too similar to the people themselves. He's too much like them. He's too close to them. And so having lots of concubines gives them that sort of a distance, I suppose. But the way it's sort of written, it does, and I think he he enjoys the company of his concubines, but he's sort of harping back in his mind to a time before he had concubines, I guess, when he used to love looking at the horses. That's what it sounds like. He says, "My head used to be turned more by the impetuous gallop of a mare with her mane tossing in the wind." Um, So it's a female horse, and of course
Mm.
concubines tend to be females, I suppose, if it's a man, I guess. So it is interesting that he's sort of comparing the horse in a sense to ladies because ladies love tossing their hair, interestingly. Well, not all ladies, of course, but you do certainly see a number of ladies who love to sort of flick their hair around, and it's their way of showing their femininity, I suppose. So it's interesting. There is some sort of a some sort of a he's thinking about the way these are similar, I guess. Crazy horses. Are ladies more impetuous than men? I don't know. Maybe some are and some aren't, perhaps. Interesting. But they don't run around on the seashore with their hooves, do they? That's the only thing. Yeah, it's interesting what you said there. Yeah, so.
Could I said
Mm,
say when I read first time, I think it's about he draws
an analogy.
between
Yeah,
an analogy between
yeah.
concubines and horses, and he describes some sexual activity with the concubines when, for example, his impetuous gallop,
Hmm.
tossing manette. It's like tossing woman's concubine's hair, and it's like analogy with sexual activity with concubines or
Oh,
sex.
right, okay. I won't ask you which for any more details. That's interesting, though. Yeah, yeah. I have wondered that a few times in this passage myself, not this passage, but the story so far. Yeah, there's definitely a possibility of that, isn't there? That's interesting, isn't it? So it starts off thinking about women and horses and their sort of similarities. I could watch that forever. At least I could. Then he comes back to reality. I could until the wind vanished. And then he talks about maybe that is why I have always preferred to campaign against naval powers because he loves being by the sea, despite the seasickness. So if you have seasickness, it's the fact that you hate being on the waves, I suppose, normally. You find it difficult being on a ship if you suffer from seasickness, which has plagued me since my very childhood. Or maybe I sense from my very childhood that misfortune would come from a distant mountainous land where I have never been. So, what do you think this misfortune he's talking about now is? Anyone or Roslan? That where do you think this misfortune would come from a distant land? What misfortune is he talking about?
One
I've never been.
second.
For the same reason, for fear of losing sight of the sea. Sometimes I find it funny that no one has guessed this weakness of mine. So, what's the misfortune, do you think? It's not obvious, I don't think. Does, does anyone know what the misfortune is?
Yes, the lack
Yeah.
of luck. Sorry, the lack of luck, the lack of fortune.
Oh, oh, fortune. Oh, I see. So money, do you mean by fortune?
That mis so misfortune is the opposite of fortune. Mm,
Sort of.
sort of. Ah, okay.
Um, if you have a fortune of money, is that
Hmm.
what you're referring to? A fortune?
Yeah, yeah. A fortune of money is an amount of money that you received
Hmm.
from
If you win a
nowhere,
prize.
nowhere. Yeah, from you don't know what, where, when,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's true. Yes,
who.
yeah, that's true. It can be. That's one meaning of fortune. But there isn't the other idea with fortune. Well,
Yeah,
if you say misfortune, it
it,
only
it,
means
it,
something
the-
like bad luck.
it's the
It,
opposite of fortune.
Not really, not
Mm.
exactly. Strangely,
Mm.
they're not an opposite. Not an exact opposite in this sense
Mm.
anyway. So misfortune only means bad luck. Let me bring up the dictionary. Let's see what the dictionary says. Oh, it actually says that.
So it's bad
So
luck. Okay.
so now bad luck. The project was dogged by misfortune, and that
Mm.
only means bad luck. So an unfortunate. Yeah, so just as about bad luck really. But when you say fortune, it normally so it could mean money, fortune. I won a fortune. But normally, if it is good luck, you might tend to say, I was fortunate. So fortunate. You might say fortunate. But you might say, oh, it was good fortune that I bumped into my old boss and he gave me a high paying job. So you could use it the way that you've suggested. And you could say, I dug up a fortune of gold coins on the beach. So you can use it that way. But in this sense, it only means bad luck. It only means bad luck. So we don't know. It's nothing to do with money in this sense. I'm sorry to say. Wish it was. I might go to the beach and dig it up in that case. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's quite tricky.
Mm.
Is
S-
it is it absence? Is it absent of wind?
Yeah, I think it's the
Misfortune
wind.
in
I
this
think it
context,
is the wind.
in
Yeah.
this context,
That.
context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So because he takes the wind very seriously, because the fleet, the navy cannot move without wind. Although they could row the boats, I suppose, but they'd be exhausted, I think, if they'd rowed the whole way across the Mediterranean. They couldn't really do that practically. Um, and also, there's this business that the city of Rome, it's tending towards revolt because it's so hot. And if the wind were to come back, it would cool down a bit. So that's the misfortune, I think, anyway. But if you have another idea, I'm happy to listen to it. So it's interesting. Some interesting ideas, I think. Yeah. So hopefully that explains it a little bit. If you're still with us, Ruslan, do you fancy just reading that little bit again? Is that
Uh,
okay?
Ruslan is disconnected.
Oh, I heard someone leave, but I didn't. Okay, thank you.
Maybe he
Hopefully he
will
comes
come.
back. Hopefully he'll
Yeah.
come back. Um, yeah, that was fascinating. Maybe if I go back to the beginning again and just read this again, maybe that would be, I don't know if it'd be useful, but if you have to go, anyone, just shoot off. Just shoot off. That's okay. But let
Ruslan is
me.
here. Sorry, Ruslan
Oh,
is here.
Yeah, my internet connection was bad.
oh, that's strange.
Mm.
Strange how you've come back so quickly, though. It's very strange, this connection. Um, so we didn't really say anything when you were gone. We were
Oh,
just sort of
really?
talking about what to do. Do you fancy rereading this bit? So this bit here again and over the page. I could read it once more if you want me to, Ruslan.
Mm.
Ruslan.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
So if I read it once
Yeah,
more, yes? Okay. So
yeah, it
I'll
will be
try
better.
again. Then it's over to you for your go then, or your second go. I've got a bit of a chesty cough here, so hang on. Just had a big cough off mic there. Okay, so my concubines, my head used to be turned more by the impetuous gallop of a mare with her mane tossing in the wind. But an untamed, I'll read again because I said but in here and I missed out a word there. So let me try it again. So my concubines. My head used to be turned more by the impetuous gallop of a mare with her mane tossing in the wind, by an untamed herd of horses down at the shoreline, challenging the waves and scattering the foam with their hooves. I can watch that forever. At least I could until the wind vanished. Maybe that is why I have always preferred to campaign against naval powers, despite the seasickness which has plagued me since my childhood. Or maybe I sensed from my very childhood that that misfortune would come from a distant mountainous land where I have never been. For the same reason, for fear of losing sight of the sea. Sometimes I think it funny that no one has guessed this weakness of mine. So there's lots of stops and starts. Again, there's precious few full stops. There is one there, up here, and well, obviously at the bottom, but it's the few and far between. So it's a bit tricky to read. So over to you once again, Ruslan, if you can, from Concubines.
Yeah, it is just very tricky.
Yeah.
Okay. My concubines, my head used to be torn more by the impetuous gallop of a mare with a horsemanship in the wind, by an untamed herd of horses down at the shoreline, challenging the waves and scattering the foam with their hooves. I can watch that forever. At least I could until the wind vanished. Maybe this is why I have always preferred to campaign against naval powers despite the sickness. Seasickness,
Mhm.
uh, which has which has plagued my since my very childhood. Or maybe I sense from my very childhood that misfortune would come from a distant mountainous land where I have never been, for the same reason, for fear of losing sight of the sea. Sometimes I find it is sometimes I find it funny that no one has guessed this weakness of mine.
Mm. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better, I think. That's good.
Yeah, a little bit better.
So
Yeah, I need more practice with words.
yeah.
Yeah, because it is really
Mm.
difficult to remember at one or two times. Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah. It's tricky, isn't it? So, mate, let's do this top line again. I'll read this top line to you, and then you read the top line back to me. So, me to you then. So it says, which has plagued me since my very childhood. So, which has plagued me since my very childhood. So, you'll go that line.
which has plagued me since my very childhood.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good actually. So the word is plagued, plagued, plagued.
Plagued, uh, plagued,
Yeah,
plagued.
it's so. So if we take the D off the end, so that's sort of past tense, or I suppose it's been used as a verb there, isn't it? So Plague. So if you there's several ways of using this word as a verb and a noun, I guess. So you can say that I have the plague, or somebody has the plague, and you're basically saying you have some kind of an illness. But the original plague that sort of gave us when we say plague, it sort of refers back to the Black Death. Ever heard of the Black Death?
Black Death.
Yeah. So back in Europe, something like about somewhere between a third and a half of Europe died in the
Okay.
1300s. In Britain, it was 13. Well, I think it started in 1347 in Britain. Something called the Black Death, and about somewhere between a third and a half of everybody died. It was a terrible, terrible disease. It was spread by, well, whatever it was spread by. So it was a disease. It was called the Black Death. But another name for it was simply the plague, the plague. So if you say, oh, I think I've got the plague, you're sort of harping back a little bit to that. I feel really ill, is what you're saying. And you're probably also saying, I think I might be infectious if you say, I think I've got the plague. So you're sort of being slightly jokey, but there's also a real element to it too. But millions died, so it's a terrible thing to joke about, you
Mm.
could say. But it was 700 years ago, pretty much. So there we go.
But it's about what he wanted to say, is it?
So he's not. But it's so that was a bit of a meaning. But what he is saying,
Yeah.
he's using the word in a slightly different way. So we
Mm.
now say, "Oh, this problem has plagued me.
Ah,
This
okay.
problem where my pen keeps running out of ink, that has plagued me.
Mhm.
It's nothing. It's not a disease or anything." Or as I said earlier on, "Oh, I can't seem to pay my bills. I'm plagued by my bills," you might say. You can't pay your bills. You
Mhm.
might say something
Mhm.
like that. So there's a few different ways lots of different ways you might use it. So a noun and a verb, I guess, isn't it there? So there's plague in that sense, but he's got a D on it, so it's just another way of puts it into the past sense or changes it into another meaning, I suppose, another tense. So which has plagued me since my childhood. So just want to say it once more. So which has plagued me since my childhood. So it's that sort of thing about horses, isn't it again? So your go.
Yeah. Which has plagued me since my very childhood.
Yeah, so just that one word again. So plagued, plagued.
Plagued. Plagued.
Yeah, I think you got it. So do you want to try to pronounce it now, but without the D on the end? So how would it
Ah,
sound without the D?
plague.
Yeah, that's it.
Plague.
You've got it. Yeah, plague. That's it. You've got it. That's it. That's spot on. You can't improve on that at all. Um, the other tricky word maybe is this one here, mountainous. So maybe if I just read from there, if I read that bit there, and could you read it after me? So this
Okay.
is my go. So from a distant mountainous land where I have never been. So I'll say it again. So from a distant mountainous land from where I have never been. So you'll go.
From a distant mountains land where I have never been.
Yeah, okay. And just that word there. So it, so if it was, there's three letters on the end of mountain, isn't it? Really. So it's mountain, and then three
Yeah.
letters stuck on the end. So mount. Can you just say mountain for me? Mountain.
Mountain. Mountain.
Um. So let's just do mountain, maybe. Whoops. Spelling. Mount. So mountain. So it, sometimes the sometimes I think in French they talk about mount
Oh, mount.
or or is that the word too? Well, let's just say sometimes you can sometimes we do talk about mount. So I think there's Mount Rainier in America. So but really it's a mountain. But sometimes certain hills or mountains are just called mount. So you may see just mount. There's
Okay.
Mount Etna. I think the Etna in Italy it says Mount Etna. It's not called Mountain Etna. It's called Mount Etna. So you may see these words sort of swapped around. But if it's just a mountain, it hasn't got a particular name, you would just say mountain. So it's got tain on the end, but we don't really say tain. We say
Oh,
mountain, more like mountain. But if I just
oh,
let me say it again, mountain, mountain.
mountain.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Mountain.
Yeah, yeah, okay. That's pretty good actually. And that's the issue, I think, really. So, but our word on the screen in the story had got this strange ending. So that's just a way of it is sort of makes it plural, just as you kind of said at the beginning. But
Mhm.
it's more than plural. It's sort of lots of plural. It's saying this whole area is full of mountains. It's sort of almost like a collective way of talking about mountains, really. So it's sort of we use this word mountainous when it's a whole area that's got lots of mountains in it, lots of hills.
Yeah, it is like a forest, yeah?
It's like
And
a forest, but mountains. That's it.
yeah,
Spot on.
okay.
That's it.
This one,
So do you want to
yeah.
say this word on the screen here? I've got a big gap in there, but it's so
Okay.
just say mountainous, mountainous.
Um, mountains, mount, mountainous,
Yeah, oh, that's it. Your last one was the best one. That's it. Uh,
mountains.
so it's got this O-U-S, but really what we're saying is it's more like mountain, mound. Then we sort of say tin, and on the end we're just saying us, us. So
Oh,
it's not us, and it's not us, but mountain us, us. So it's closer to us really, but it's more us, us, mountainous, mountainous. Do you want to give it a go? Mountainous?
mountainous,
Yeah, yeah.
mountainous.
Yeah, oh, the
Oh,
last one was the best one. That was it. Mountainous, us. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So
a
it's not
bit
really
tricky.
us. We're not really saying us on the
Yeah,
end,
I
but it's
understand.
closer. It's closer to that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but there's lots of a good number of tricky words here. If we go back to the other page again, so that those words I recommend you sort of practice perhaps. So the tricky words here, I think sometimes you said concubine's okay, I think, but sometimes you've got the binds bit. You kind of
Oh,
missaid the binds bit. So but the word concubines, we never really use it today. I mean, I don't know any concubines, to be honest. I don't think I've seen
okay.
any concubines in the last 10 years. At least if there were concubines, they kept it quiet. But we will say it a couple of times. So concubines. I'm going to give it a go. Concubines. You'll go.
Concubines, concubines,
Ah, the last one was better. Yeah. So it's got this sort of concubines. Binds. It's the
concubines.
binds bit you, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And again,
okay.
concubines.
Concubines.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. You've got it. You've got it. We'll leave it at that because it is such it's hardly used really. A lot of the time it is an S on the end, but not always. Um, and this other word here, now this word is used more, but still not a great deal. So if you do something without thinking about it, you could say it's impetuous. So do you want to say this word again? So impetuous, impetuous. You'll go.
Impetuous,
Yeah.
impetuous,
Oh, the last one again was the best one. Yeah, that's it. Impetuous, impetuous.
impetuous,
Oh, not that. That one wasn't quite so good. But give it another go. So impetuous, impetuous.
impetuous.
Oh, that was better, I think. So I'm sort of saying the impet bit, but when I get to the U, I'm saying I'm saying you. I'm not pronouncing it. I'm saying the name of the letter. Impet
Um,
you us. I think you're doing that actually,
mm,
pretty much. And we get to remember like the mountain us. It's got this same sort of
yeah.
ending, the OUS,
Hmm.
and the OUS has got the same kind of effect on this word, same sort of effect, same sort of effect. Um, But this time and it's very similar to the us of mountainous, impetuous, impetuous. Can you hear the similar? It's very similar to mountainous,
Yes.
impetuous. Yeah, the ending is basically the same, really. Do you think you can try and do that sort of thing? It's a impetuous. Give it a go.
Impetuous,
Oh,
impetuous,
oh, your first one was basically perfect. You had it spot on. You couldn't improve on that, but you lost it a little bit with the second one.
mhm.
So yeah, maybe write that down any way
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
sort of practice it or whatever. Um, untamed maybe untamed might be another one we could do. So
Untamed,
yeah.
untamed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's the right idea. It's a little bit sort of bit more practice maybe. Let's do that sort of short half a sentence there. By an untamed herd of horses. Do you want to give that little sentence a go? So, by an
Yeah.
untamed herd of horses. By an untamed herd of horses. So the herd bit means grouped.
Oh,
And if something's
okay.
untamed,
It
it's
is
sort
wild.
basically it's not. Yeah, that's right. It's not been exposed to humans. It's basically wild. That's it. So I'll say it once more, then it's over to you. By an untamed herd of horses. You'll go.
By NI by one second. By NI I can't say uh, by an I am tamed herd of horses.
Yeah, that's not too bad actually. Not too bad. So we'll do the tricky word then. So you're
Yeah,
okay with herd. I thought maybe you weren't too good on herd, but okay. So untamed. So if something is tame, it's sort of like a pet, isn't it? It's like
yeah.
I've got a tame cat here, or something. Most cats are tame, aren't they? But not all of them. So, but this is the opposite. So it's untamed. Untamed.
Untamed, but it's difficult to say it's with a an untamed and by an untamed. It is.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I would say that that is one of the things with English that it's getting used to or having all these different beginning parts and ending parts. Often when it's un stuck on the beginning, almost every time you just say it. You just say the and then you say the word behind it exactly the same as you would with the in the other version of the word, because obviously just flips the meaning round, doesn't it? So, but
Ah,
un is just un. You never say un is never not never, but there is the odd occasion where you do say it slightly differently. But most of the time, almost everywhere, you just say and then you stick the normal word behind it as you would normally say it. Normally, as I said, because the word tamed exists, so it's just then the normal word tamed. It doesn't really ever affect the pronunciation. There are some, but not many. It's like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100 maybe or something. We say it slightly differently. So do you want to give so
okay.
untamed? Should we just say it that way?
Untamed.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. You can't
Untamed.
really. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, your first one was the best one. That's it. But that was good. That was good. Um, um, so any other words here on this little bit down the bottom here you want to practice again, or
Yeah,
anyone on
I
this
would
page for
like
that
to
matter?
ask about this last one is scattering.
I was going to mention that, and I thought, yes, you probably know that word. So if you scatter something, it's just spread about everywhere.
Spread. Yeah, yeah.
Spread
Okay.
about everywhere. So,
Spread.
so these are
It is like a
waves.
make makes a gossip makes a gossip makes gossip. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, gossip might be scattered everywhere. Yes, it might be. Yeah. It doesn't quite, you don't often hear those two words put together, but it could do something like that. I suppose with
Mhm.
scattering, it tends to be more physical. Let's bring the dictionary up, see what the dictionary says. So
Ah,
scattering. So it says an act of scattering. Something a oh, let me just read it again. I misread it. So scattering, noun, an act of scattering something, a small dispersed amount of something. So you might scatter coins on the floor, or you don't. It doesn't normally. I suppose they're saying something physical, but I
okay.
suppose you could extend it if in poetry or some other another if you wanted to. But in most of the time, it's just something physical, I think. But you probably could use it if you really wanted to, in
But,
terms of say scattered gossip or something. But it doesn't. Don't often hear that. Yeah. So yeah. Uh,
yeah. Okay.
dispersed. So a small dispersed amount of something scattered. Well, small. I think. I think a large amount could be scattered too. I'd have thought. I'm not quite sure why it said small. Must be my misunderstanding of the word. And so, what are hooves again? What are hooves?
Suppose it is like a shoes, but for the horse or for the cows? No,
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
cows.
yeah. It's cows and who. Certain animals have hooves, and other
Ah,
animals
yeah.
just have feet. So and I forget there is a sort of a distinction. So, cows have hooves, horses have hooves, and maybe I don't know what other animals might have those kind of feet, but say cats have paws on their feet, don't they? So, but if you're talking about cows and horses and certain other animals, you say hooves. But if
Yes,
it's
and
if it's
as
singular, it's just an
yeah,
F on the end. If it's just one foot, can I look at that? Can I look at that horse's hoof? That's with an F on the end. That's just one foot. I don't look at all of their
okay.
feet, just the one. So this is plural. And if it's just F on the no VES, just an F there, that would be singular.
Okay. Cool.
But as I said, so dogs have paws and cats have paws, and certain animals just have hooves. And basically, I think it's then, isn't it their if you think about your foot on the floor, it's your skin, your skin is going on the floor. Whereas we say with a hoof, isn't it the nail? What defines a hoof? I don't know really. So maybe we'll end the class there. Otherwise, we're going to go on forever at this rate. Oh, so thanks very much for coming. Let's pause the class there, or stop it, I should say.